Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing our Hannibal series, our Second Punic War series. We just saw a interesting, fun battle occur in Sardinia. Now we are going to see another battle. I'm excited. Are you excited? Let's jump right into it.
Roman army in Sardinia held on.
Iberia.
Having received orders from Carthage to lead his army overland at the earliest opportunity and join his brother Hannibal in Italy, Hasdrubal Barca continued his preparations after crushing the Tartessi rebellion earlier in the year. But in a detailed report sent to the Senate, he insisted they send him a successor with a strong army to guard Carthaginian possessions in the Iberian Peninsula.
Gotta have somebody strong over there. It's the lifeline, it seems like.
Hasdrubal asserted that even if all should go well, his successor in Iberia would not find it to be a peaceful province. This advice left a deep impression and received widespread support in the Carthaginian Senate. Throughout September and October, Himilco was put in charge of assembling an army of at least 20,000, along with an augmented fleet, and tasked with defending Iberia both by sea and land. Hasdrubal's assertions were not without merit. The stockpiling of provisions and the collection of tribute from the subjugated population to finance the upcoming campaign stirred up rumors that the Carthaginian army was leaving, which was enough to fan unrest among the locals. There was real danger that once Hasdrubal marched off to Italy, many of the tribes would either revolt or join the Romans. Himilco arrived in late autumn 216 BC, signaling the start of the campaign to drive the Scipio brothers out of Iberia.
Yeah, they've been there for quite a bit. Quite a bit, actually. 215 now.
By the time Hasdrubal received his reinforcements in Iberia, the third winter of the war had set in, and the fighting in all theaters had subsided. But trouble was brewing in Sicily.
Uh-oh. We haven't even talked about Sicily yet.
The Greek cities across the north and northeast of the island broke away, seeing their chance to gain independence from Rome. Then, at the turn of the year, the elderly tyrant of Syracuse, Hieron II, had died. For 50 years he was a loyal ally of Rome, but now the crown passed to his 15-year-old grandson, Hieronymus. Hannibal's successes in Italy convinced the young ruler to open negotiations on how to divide Sicily. Two envoys of Carthaginian Syracusan descent, Hippocrates and Epicides, came to Hieronymus, promising that the whole of Sicily will be a Syracusan possession.
Really? Well, there you go.
Internal political conflict raged for another 3 months, but the pro-Carthaginian faction eventually prevailed. Hieronymus joined Hannibal's side with an army of 15,000 and another 4,000 under the leadership of Hippocrates and Epicides.
Let's just set the stage. We have so much, like when we talk about theaters, north of Italy, like the Cisalpine Gaul, you have that region basically being a no-go zone because of the Boii tribes, and those people, we're not going to conflict with them, Rome says. You got southern Italy, which is a defection nightmare right now, with Capua and all those tribes just seamlessly looking like they are Carthaginian allies. You got Sardinia, which is revolted to a degree to where you have to have troops from both factions be sent. You have this Syracusan just curveball now, which is a stepping stone from Carthage to the boot. And then you have Iberia, which is, like I said before, the lifeline of this entire Carthaginian war effort. It seems when it comes to the mines, the resources, and all the tribes that are currently wishy-washy on which side they want to be on. Wow. So much to manage.
In addition, Carthaginian ships in the area were joined by the Syracusan fleet. Syracuse now threatened to tip the balance of the war. Rome was rapidly losing control over Sicily. The island was a springboard for raids against the African coast. Furthermore, it served as a shield for Italy proper. Conversely, Carthage could now use the ports of Sicily to launch raids against Roman cities and more safely transport troops to southern Italy.
Supplies.
The reinforcements that Hannibal was expecting could give him the resources for a finishing blow.
Easily.
And with some of the best Roman troops now at risk of being cut off, 2 of Appius Claudius's legions were withdrawn from Sicily back to mainland Italy, while the disgraced survivors of Cannae went the other way. Additional ships were sent to protect Sicily against a possible Carthaginian invasion, while the remaining squadrons patrolled Italy's coastal waters. It was then, near Brundisium, that a Macedonian ship was intercepted. The Romans boarded the ship, finding both Macedonian and Carthaginian diplomats, as well as documents that showed Hannibal and Philip were negotiating an alliance.
I don't think they knew this before this, right?
From those on board, the Romans learned that this was just one of many diplomatic missions between Hannibal and Philip. Marcus Valerius Lavinus was put in charge of Roman forces in Apulia to contain the Macedonian threat. Meanwhile, Marcellus was overwhelmingly voted as one of the consuls for the year 215, thanks to his action at Nola.
Well deserved, by the way.
Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus, another capable commander, was chosen as his colleague. However, the Senate disapproved of having 2 plebeian consuls, and they forced Marcellus to step aside in favor of Fabius Maximus, retaining the title of proconsul instead.
Okay.
With manpower depleted in some communities of Italy due to losses against Hannibal, Rome reverted to the Fabian strategy of avoiding conflict with the Carthaginian general. Many towns were hastily fortified, and the Roman Senate decreed that the crops be brought to walled cities to increase food stockpiles and deprive Hannibal of provisions that he could loot. Farmers who failed to comply faced confiscation of land and property, as well as immediate imprisonment and forced labor in the mines. Unable to dislodge Hannibal and unwilling to meet him in battle, the Roman strategy was to contain him. With around 40,000 men at his disposal.
By the way, what does this look like? This looks like 6, maybe not even 6, probably like 8 episodes ago when he had the oxen sent with torches on their horns. This looks so similar to how he's surrounded in the valley of Campania, but a different time.
At Capua and another 20,000 under Hanno in Bruttium, Hannibal faced 100,000 Roman troops in southern Italy. In spring, Hannibal marched out of Capua, establishing his camp on Mount Tifata. This was a strong defensive position from where he was at hand to support his Italian allies and oppose the Roman generals in the area. The imposing mountains could be easily found by reinforcements and supplies coming from his Italian allies and Carthage. Across the Mediterranean, Hasdrubal completed the muster of his forces at New Carthage and moved north once more towards the Ebro. Knowing that an arduous journey lay ahead, he made sure to levy enough funds to secure safe passage, purchase additional provisions, and hire Gallic warriors on his way to Italy. But at the fore was the destruction of the Roman army in Iberia. The Scipio brothers were aware of Hasdrubal's plan. Word of his decrees and preparations had reached them. They understood well what is at stake. If Hasdrubal were to link up with Hannibal in Italy,
it could be GG's.
That would spell the end of Rome.
Probably.
But undefeated since disembarking in Iberia nearly 3 years ago, the Scipios enjoyed confidence of their troops and could count on the fighting spirit of their heavy infantry. They marched out of the camp and crossed the Ebro at Amposta, a town that defected to the Romans, then proceeded to attack Carthaginian allies. Moving upstream, a small detachment stayed on the northern side of the river, while Gnaeus led the main body of the army along the southern bank. Publius commanded the fleet up the river to support operations on land. Their main target was the city of Hibera, the wealthiest city in the region. Strategically placed, it held a vital river crossing, and from its fluvial port it controlled the traffic of the lower Ebro. The taking of Hibera and the scorching of the surrounding towns and countryside would significantly delay the enemy's projected march. But then, Hasdrubal's army appeared, earlier than expected. Confident that Hibera can hold out behind its fortifications.
It's interesting that they went to Hibera when it seems the most likely crossing would be Amposta.
He did not speed to the relief of his ally. Instead, he marched on Amposta.
That's what I was thinking.
Situated at the mouth of the Ebro, the town was larger than other settlements in the vicinity and housed important grain silos. Its defenses, however, could not hold out as long as Hibera's. If Amposta were to fall, the Roman army and fleet would not be able to prevent the reduction of their main camp.
Like, well, I don't understand, just on a geographic setting of how we would see the Carthaginians travel. It just makes sense. It's practical to go to Amposta first. It's a straight shot versus going north where you're kind of flanked by mountains. Yeah, I'm not sure what the Romans are thinking here.
Worse, Hasdrubal would be able to cross the Ebro uncontested and position his army between the Romans and Tarraco, cutting their supply lines. For the Carthaginians, their objective was clear. To continue their march to Italy, they had to overrun Roman positions north of the Ebro. They needed a battle of annihilation.
Okay.
Thus, Hasdrubal clearly wanted to lure the Romans into a decisive encounter, and he succeeded. The Scipio brothers aborted the siege of Hibera and set out.
They were sieging Hibera. I thought they were defending that position. That's my bad.
For Amposta. Besides aforementioned problems that the Romans might face, not challenging Hasdrubal would also hurt their prestige. Leaving a Roman ally to their fate would shake the loyalty of other communities. The Scipios had to act. On a plain just south of the Ebro River, the two armies deployed for a set-piece battle. The Roman...
Very simple, it looks like. You got one Scipio on the water. Sure, he'll deploy on land soon. And then you got the other Scipio on land. The cavalry, I mean, it looks like Carthage has the edge here. I'm not sure how many troops are on those boats.
Deployed in their traditional formation, with velites in the front, 3 lines of infantry, flanked by the Italian allies and Iberian auxiliaries, who were in turn flanked by the cavalry.
Yeah.
Hasdrubal placed the Iberian and Ligurian mercenary infantry in the center, flanked by the Punic and Libyan heavy infantry.
Got elephants too.
Numidian light and contingents of Maori cavalry occupied the right wing, while the Iberian and Libyan Punic cavalry were on the left, with elephants behind both wings.
But the elephants is front.
Being on the south side of the Ebro, Gnaeus had to advance. As long as the Carthaginians were present, it would have been very dangerous to attempt a river crossing, even with the aid of the Roman fleet. When the battle
Notice, is the cavalry about to flank?
was joined, Hasdrubal pulled back the Iberian infantry. The Numidians and Maori harassed the Italian cavalry.
You see what they're doing? They're setting up the exact same thing that happened at Carthage. They're letting a crescent thing start to form and then those two side infantry is going to flank them. My goodness, they didn't share notes.
Opposing them, causing chaos among their ranks. On the left wing, the Iberian and Libyan Punic horse proved superior to the Roman cavalry. Then, as planned, the Libyan and Punic heavy infantry struck the flanks of the Roman centre. Like his older brother at Cannae had done the year prior, Hasdrubal wanted to hold the Roman centre until his cavalry swept the field of Roman mounted units, before regrouping to attack the enemy's rear to complete the envelopment.
What's the other Scipio doing? Just eating popcorn watching this?
But, not keen on embarking on a journey to Italy far from their homes, the Iberian troops were in poor spirits. In stark contrast, the Romans knew that their return home depended on the outcome of the battle. They were ready to win or die.
Okay.
It wasn't long before the Iberians in the center lost heart. They broke and fled in the face of the advancing Roman infantry.
Wow.
Hasdrubal's plan fell apart. With his cavalry still engaged, only the Libyan and Punic infantry were now facing the Roman
Even the elephants lost their morale?
legions. They were quickly pushed back. Seeing that the line collapsed, the Carthaginian cavalry wheeled about and retreated. Hasdrubal also escaped, crucially managing to take the treasury with him. Locked in bitter fighting, most of the Libyan and Punic heavy infantry, the best and most loyal troops, perished, while the rest of the army marched away to safety.
This is a Roman win.
Despite their victory, the Scipios did not follow up with a campaign of their own. Their finances were critical, and there was little prospect of reinforcements from Rome, due to heavy losses suffered in Italy. As experienced generals, the brothers knew that their position was precarious against the vast resources of Carthaginian Iberia. They could not risk their army in major encounters for the time being.
I mean, they got a good spot. That Ebro River crossing kind of like acts as a natural barrier. It's a really good spot for them to chill.
But their victory pushed the Carthaginians out of the Ebro Valley. The wealthy city of Hibera surrendered to Rome, and with that came the usual hostage-taking, punitive payments, and the obligation to provide auxiliary troops. The submission of Hibera meant that other important fortified Iberian towns in Illa Cavona, such as Intibili and Ildum, also surrendered to the Scipios. Now, the Romans could use the length of the Ebro to move troops and supplies, launch small-scale raids to destabilize Carthaginian rule in the area, and apply pressure on the tribes that lived along the river to join Rome. But most crucially, the Scipios had not only prevented their own expulsion from Iberia, but also the doubling of Carthaginian forces in Italy, something which Rome would not have withstood.
Probably not. Like, if we assume that there was no issues going through the Alps or going through those tribes, probably would not fare well.
The impact of the Battle of Hibera would be far-reaching. Thank you so.
That is amazing. What a video. Thank you guys for joining me on these videos, especially the Hannibal series. It's been fun. Before we started this series, of course, we did the oversimplified series, which is the 2 Punic War, and then there was 5 parts, 2 in the first, 3 in the second. And before that, I never really even I've heard of Hannibal, but I really didn't understand the Punic Wars. Didn't really have much of an understanding at all what had gone down. I mean, this is far before, you know, we started, when we looked at Rome with like Julius Caesar, Pompey, and all those people. This is, you know, a few hundred years actually before that. So it's exciting to understand some of the pretext to the eventual collapse of the Roman Republic, but this is like right in the heart of the Roman Republic, obviously. To see all this will and fight and morale across these different theaters is just interesting, as well as, you know, you got this is just a microscopic part of the world. There's things happening all over the world at the same time, mostly tribal in Europe, but there's still the Middle East. There's still a lot of things happening out far east, but this is just a huge moment in time in history, shaping what will come for 1,000 years. Um, yeah, Hasdrubal cannot group back with Hannibal in a sandwich way. This is going to expel that plan from happening more than likely. Yet the Scipio's still pushing strong. The Ebro River is creating a very natural designed barrier before Gaul. So all is good on Rome right now. Syracuse is an interesting spot though. That could be a thorn in their side, as well as seems the rest of the southern Italy is kind of falling in the same boat. Don't really know what's happening in Sardinia besides the status quo of what we saw last time, which is a small revolt, which has turned into a larger revolt, which we had the Battle of Cornus. However, we got a few more parts. I think there's part 18, 19, 20, and 21 left in the series. Obviously, after part 21, that's not the end of the Second Punic War. That's just as far as HistoryMarche has gotten with this series so far. I know a lot of effort is put into these videos, so I appreciate him so much. Appreciate the whole HistoryMarche team, if there's a larger team. Thank you guys for watching me react to these. These are fun reactions. I know a lot of people have their own feelings about reaction videos and whatnot, and of course, what we're doing here on this channel is we react to history together. Want to learn and create context together, not just personally, but I'd love to at least spend some time with you watching a history video. That's the bare minimum of everything. But thank you for being here. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Bye bye.